The fifth discipline, the art and practice of the self-learning organization, author Peter Senge. Subtitles by freebooksummary. Introduction. Book The fifth discipline, the art and practice of the self-learning organization was first published in 1990, but Peter Senge's ideas can still be called innovative, despite the fact that the world around us is changing rapidly. Most CEOs practice traditional management methods. However, today the company that learns faster than its competitors wins. Once there was one leader in every industry: IBM, Xerox, Procter & Gamble, but now dozens of companies can succeed in the same business area. In addition, mass material prosperity has changed people's attitude to labor from instrumental, when only exhausting work saved from starvation, to a more elevated understanding of the intrinsic value of work. People want to create, actively participate in the process, and be proud of the results of their labor. The author believes that only a company in which employees are committed, willing to voice their opinions and make decisions, and within which there is a constant process of learning and renewal, can be successful in our time. The book details the elements necessary to create the learning organization. Particular attention is paid to the systems approach, or fifth element, which the author considers essential. Only by breaking with the illusion that the world is made up of separate, independent parts do we have the opportunity to build a learning organization where people are constantly expanding their ability to create what they really want, where new, active ways of thinking emerge, and where freedom of choice and expression are possible. Chapter 1. Elements of a learning organization. To create organizations capable of learning and continual empowerment, 5 elements are vital to creating organizations that reinforce and complement each other, as they do in every true ensemble: personal improvement, intellectual models, the formation of a shared vision, group learning, systems thinking. 1. Personal improvement. Personal improvement is a set of processes and skills that promote personal growth and learning. Life should be filled with creativity, not reaction to events. When personal improvement becomes a discipline, i.e., an activity integrated with our lives, we begin to realize what really matters to us. Often we spend so much time and energy dealing with the problems that come our way that we forget what we are doing the journey for. As a result, we have only a vague, and sometimes incorrect, idea of what matters to us, what is going on around us. Everyone has met people stuck in fruitless and damaging relationships, convinced that they are okay. The juxtaposition of a vision, what we want, and a clear view of reality, where we are relative to our goal, creates creative tension. Mastering creative tension changes the attitude toward failure. Failure provides a chance to learn something, to perceive reality more accurately, to improve strategy, to make your ideas and intentions clearer. Ed Land, founder and longtime president of Polaroid, hung a slogan in his office: "A mistake is an event from which you have not yet capitalized." The path of personal improvement involves developing a special skill in dealing with things and people and acquiring certain personality traits, a sense of direction from which vision and goals are formed, the ability to accept change and work with the forces that bring it about, rather than fighting the impermanence of life, a spirit of inquiry, a desire to perceive the world as accurately and deeply as possible, a desire for continuous learning. There is nothing that can be mastered perfectly. Learning is a lifelong process, confidence in oneself and one's abilities. Second, intellectual models. Many new ideas never make it to practice because they conflict with deeply held beliefs about the world, which means that it is those beliefs that keep us outside of our usual ways of thinking and acting. The King's New Dress is a classic account, not of human stupidity, but of the intellectual models that blind people's eyes. Only the notion of royalty prevents them from seeing that the king is naked. Intellectual models can be simple generalizations: "You can't trust anyone," or they can be complex theories: "Why is my family so weird?" Intellectual models shape our actions. If a person believes that no one can be trusted, they will behave differently than someone who believes that people can be trusted. If a father believes his son lacks self-confidence and his daughter is too aggressive, he will intervene in their relationship to protect his son. Intellectual patterns determine exactly what we see. Two people look at the same thing but describe it differently. The relationship between mental models and our perceptions is important in the realm of governance as well. The Big Three of Detroit have been convinced for decades that the most important thing about cars is style and finish, not quality and reliability. For years, consumers believed the same. However, as manufacturers from Germany and Japan introduced the idea that style and quality are compatible. Americans' preferences changed, and by 1986 the share of American cars had dropped to 62% and continues to decline. Problems arise when intelligent models exist in stealth. The Detroit companies did not say, "Under our intelligent model, people only care about style." They were saying, "People only think about style." In the future, companies that find ways to develop new intellectual models suitable for action in all plausible situations will succeed. In 1969, Hanover Insurance, an insurance company on the verge of bankruptcy, began the process of updating the traditional hierarchical values that had dominated the organization for so long. Managers identified two core values that drove the company to work on intelligent models: openness and acting on substance. Openness was seen as an antidote to hypocrisy. No one talked about problems in a morning business meeting as much as with friends over a beer. Acting on substance meant making decisions in the best interest of the organization. It was an antidote to decision-making in the tradition of bureaucratic politics, where it was all about impressing and getting ahead of others. As these two values took hold and took root, it became clear that things could be changed if people learned to expose and productively discuss their own perceptions of the world. A leader may be tempted to impose his or her intellectual model, but even if that model is actually better, his business is not to impose it on others, but to present it for discussion and assimilation. It is important to note that in a learning organization, agreement is not an end in itself. Each model must be considered and applied to a possible future situation. Today, most critical decisions are made based on mental models that embody linear thinking. The learning organizations of the future will make decisions based on an understanding of interdependencies and patterns of change. Third, formation of a common vision. A vision dream is truly shared when a shared image of the future emerges and a special bond is established between people. In fact, it is the desire of individuals to participate together in the realization of important endeavors that is the force that creates the shared dream that gives focus and energy to the learning process. There is a lot of talk today about vision and dream, but it is usually the vision of one person or a small group of people who impose their goals and ideals on an organization. In return, they receive at best obedience, but not loyalty. What is special about a shared dream is that people are committed to it because it is also everyone's personal goal. It is inconceivable that the Ford or Apple corporations could have been created without the energy generated by a shared dream. Henry Ford and his team strived to make the automobile affordable for every family. Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and the other founders of Apple dreamed of making the computer as common a household tool as the telephone. Often the goals created by a shared dream are relative, such as, say, beating a competitor. The Pepsi-Cola company wants to get ahead of the Coca-Cola company, but this is an intermediate goal, and once achieved, it can easily turn into a purely defensive stance. Keep what has been achieved without losing industry leadership. It is difficult for such goals to become a source of creative energy and excitement, as in the creation of something fundamentally new. A single goal dream elevates people's aspiration and is embodied in a company's products or services. Purpose can also be embodied in the style, atmosphere, or spirit of an organization. Max Dupree, the retired CEO of the Herman Miller Furniture Company, sought to transform the company into a gift of the human spirit, referring not only to the company's products but also to its employees, atmosphere, and focus on harmonizing the work environment. A common purpose changes the relationship between people and the company. It is no longer their company, but our company. A common purpose is the first step to overcoming mutual distrust between people, unity and working together. Psychologist Abraham Maslow studied high-performance work groups. Their hallmark was a shared understanding of goals and objectives. Organizations that seek to unite workers with a common purpose encourage them to strive for personal goals. If a person does not have his own dreams and his own purpose, he will not be committed to common goals, but at best will obediently follow instructions handed down from above. Many organizations find a kind of unity only, and they are threatened with extinction. They are united by the threat of bankruptcy, loss of jobs, takeover by another company, and falling earnings. Negative goals, however, are short-lived. The motive for action goes away with the disappearance of the danger, and with it go the purpose and energy of action. There are two main sources of energy: fear and attraction. Negative goals are fueled by the energy of fear. Positive ones are energized by the energy of claims and aspiration. The emergence of a shared vision requires a constant dialogue where everyone is free to talk about their aspiration, but is able to listen to others. It is in such communication that a new understanding of what can be achieved gradually emerges. Fourth, group learning. Group learning is the process of achieving cohesion, developing the ability of a group to achieve the results that its members really want. At the heart of such learning is the development of shared vision and personal improvement. Group learning has three critical aspects. The group must learn how to reach its potential and become intellectually richer than any of its members. Innovative but carefully coordinated action is needed. Outstanding sports teams and jazz orchestras can serve as examples of spontaneous yet coordinated behavior where everyone is aware and mindful of others and can be expected to act in the common interest. Members of one group influence other groups. The learning group is constantly a source of skills and experience for the others. The actions of the top managers affect the behavior of other groups in the organization. The discipline of group learning, like any other discipline, needs practice. This is what groups in today's organizations lack. Training such groups requires continuous exercise and practice. First and foremost, group members need to learn the art of dialogue. In order for dialogue to take place, three conditions are necessary. All participants must arrange an exhibition of their assumptions, opinions, and views for free discussion. Dialogue participants must treat each other as colleagues. A mediator is needed who holds the context of the dialogue. This role is particularly important in the early stages of dialogue as a group discipline. Contrary to popular belief, successful teams are not free of conflict. On the contrary, one of the most reliable indicators of a group's ability to continually learn is a clear clash of ideas. As a rule, conflict arises over the content of the vision, the goal. The essence of the long-range goal-setting process is that some kind of shared vision emerges from a set of private visions. But even when the common vision has already been formed, everyone may have a different idea of how to realize it. The free flow of conflicting ideas is critical for creative thinking, for discovering new solutions that are beyond the reach of the individual mind. In essence, conflict is part of dialogue. The difference between outstanding and mediocre teams is the attitude toward conflict and the defensive posture that inevitably develops as conflict unfolds. For most of us, in the invitation to reveal our logic lurks the danger that others will discover errors in our thinking. This kind of fear rises at a very early age, and then is reinforced by the experience of school. Everyone has experienced the fear of being called to the blackboard and not knowing the lesson. The forms of defensive routines are so varied and habitual that they are usually overlooked. When we don't take someone's ideas seriously, we simply brush them off by saying, "That's a very interesting idea." We sometimes deliberately prevent someone from speaking up so that we don't have to absorb what they have to say. One energetic CEO complained about the lack of real leaders in his organization. He felt that there were a lot of conformists in the company, but no truly committed people. For a man who genuinely thought of himself as a skilled leader, who was not afraid of any risk, this was particularly frustrating. In fact, he overwhelmed those around him with his brilliant statements, which is why his ideas were almost never attempted to be challenged publicly. People internalized that, in his presence, they were better off keeping quiet about their ideas and perceptions. As the group learns how to work with rather than fight defenses, people gain confidence that the obstacles to learning are surmountable. As a result, they gain the belief that they can change other aspects of reality as well. Chapter 2. Systems Thinking. The fifth discipline of the learning organization is systems thinking. Without it, all other skills and knowledge will remain siloed theoretical techniques. A systems approach reminds us that the whole is more than the sum of its parts. A dream that does not rely on systems thinking is just a rosy picture of future success, but not an understanding of what forces are capable of ensuring its realization. Systems thinking, in turn, needs a new vision, intellectual models, the ability to organize group learning, and encourage personal excellence. Shared vision cultivates dedication, Intellectual models help to break the blinders of world perception and promote openness of mind. Group learning develops a commitment to collective goals, and personal excellence involves continuous learning and an active relationship to the world. Systemic thinking allows us to see that our problems are not the result of someone else's efforts and mistakes, but the consequence of our own actions, and gives us the opportunity to find a way out of the most difficult situation and change reality. First, the essence of systems thinking. The essence of systems thinking is to see interdependencies rather than linear chains of cause and effect, to see processes of change rather than static states. Systems thinking shows how different actions can reinforce or balance each other. It teaches us to recognize the types of structures that can self-reproduce. The structure of an arms race is in principle no different from the war of gangster groups for influence in a neighborhood or the advertising war of consumer product manufacturers fighting for market share. By helping us to discern the structural patterns that produce particular events, systems thinking ultimately simplifies life. It is axiomatic to systems thinking that every influence is both a cause and an effect. Consider a very simple system, filling a glass with water. Someone may think this is not a system, everything is too simple, and he would be wrong. According to the linear point of view, we say, I am filling the glass with water. But as we fill the glass, we are monitoring the gap between the actual water level and our goal-desired water level. When the surface of the water approaches the desired level, we close the faucet and reduce the flow, and when the glass is full, we close the faucet altogether. By filling the glass with water, we are actually controlling a system of jet control involving 5 variables: the desired water level, the actual water level, the gap between these levels, the position of the faucet, and the jet pressure. These variables are linked by a cycle of causal dependencies called feedback. The feedback system operates continuously to ensure that the glass is filled with water. Second, how to make a systems diagram. Systems thinking starts with seeing cycles of influence instead of linear relationships. This is the first step to getting out of the reactive mechanical state of mind produced by linear thinking. Each cycle is a different story. By observing the directions of influence, we can identify self-reproducing patterns of action that lead to a worsening or improving situation. An arrow emerges from any element of the situation, signifying an influence on another element. The arrow goes from faucet position to water flow. Any change in the position of the faucet changes the water pressure. But no arrow exists in isolation. You can start with any element and move from action to action, moving in a circle like a railroad train. I have set the position of a valve that controls the force of a jet that changes the level of water in a beaker. The beaker fills up and the gap between the real level and the desired level changes. At the same time, I change the position of the faucet, which changes the water pressure, etc. Reading a feedback diagram should lead to an understanding of the course of events. How a structure creates a pattern of behavior, and, in complex systems, several patterns of behavior, and how this pattern of behavior can be influenced. Third, the blocks of systems thinking. The concepts of feedback and delay are central to the description of all sorts of systems that we encounter again and again in life. There are 2 kinds of feedback: reinforcing and counterbalancing. Reinforcing or extending feedback processes serve as engines of growth. Wherever we encounter the presence of growth, we can be sure that there is a reinforcing feedback process at work. The oil crisis is a classic example. Someone says that a gasoline shortage is expected, and people rush to the gas station to fill up their tanks. If there is a queue at the gas station, everyone is convinced that the crisis has already occurred. Panic begins and people buy gasoline in advance, fearing that they may run out of gas at the gas station. Drivers start refueling as soon as the tank is only a quarter empty. Reinforcing feedback can also have a positive effect. Many processes can accelerate in the desired direction. A positive feedback spiral is an indispensable component of marketing any successful product. A satisfied customer tells about his good fortune. He is believed and bought. Other satisfied customers continue to praise him, and so on. This was the case with the first model of Volkswagen and Japanese machinery. We find counterbalancing or stabilizing feedback wherever there is goal-directed behavior. If the goal is to stay still, then the counterbalancing feedback will act like seat belts in a car. If the goal is to move at 60 kilometers per hour, counterbalancing feedback will force you to bring your speed up to 60, but no more. There are many examples of counterbalancing feedback, and they are found wherever there is a goal. Complex systems such as the human body contain thousands of counterbalancing feedback processes that put the body in a state of readiness to repel external threats, maintaining a stable body temperature, allowing wounds to heal, and adapting pupils to light conditions. Organizations and other social systems resemble a living organism in their myriad of equilibrium processes. Production and supply processes constantly adjust to the volume of orders for finished goods. Prices change in response to changes in demand and pressure from competing products, and the amount of credit resources varies in response to financial needs and cash balances. Many feedback processes operate with delays so that the effects of actions become apparent only gradually. Delays can destabilize a system, derailing all plans if we do not anticipate them. In all systems formed by humans, there are delays between actions and their consequences. We invest today and reap the benefits in the future. We hire a person today, but it may take months for them to start delivering value. We put resources into a new project knowing that if it pays off, it will only be years later. It's important to remember that if the feedback system is delayed, over-energetic action has the opposite effect than expected. Instead of achieving the goal quickly, you will get instability and hesitation. Chapter 3. Archetypes of Systems. One of the most important and potentially valuable principles of systems thinking is that certain manifestations of structural processes occur over and over again. These systems archetypes, or typical structures, are the key to being able to recognize the structures at work. If the different kinds of feedback and delay mechanisms can be likened to the nouns and verbs of a system's language, then the archetypes can be compared to the basic statements of that language, or simple stories that are repeated time after time. As we learn more and more about these archetypes, we begin to see more situations that we are able to manage. First, delayed equilibration. A person, group, or organization moving toward a goal changes behavior in response to delayed signals from a feedback mechanism. Builders continue to invest in new properties as long as there is demand, and as a result are faced with real estate not selling. Second, limits to growth. The feedback mechanism provides a period of accelerated growth or expansion. Then growth slows and stops, or there is an accelerated decline. A new development team works brilliantly at first, but due to success, there are many new hires who do not share the style or values of the team builders. Third, problem substitution. A short-term solution that quickly produces demonstrably positive results is used to correct the situation. The more proactive and more frequent this solution is used, the less often cardinal long-term solutions are used. Over time, the ability to use cardinal measures can atrophy, leading to an even greater reliance on symptomatic solutions. The company increases sales to existing customers instead of expanding their customer base. Fourth, shifting problems to others. The situation where someone from the outside tries to help solve problems is repeated so often and persistently that it deserves special attention. Outside intervention is aimed at alleviating obvious symptoms and can be so successful that it prevents people from learning how to solve their own problems. Companies become dependent on staffing agencies because they do not develop staff and train leaders from within their workforce. Fifth, goal dilution. This is a variant of the problem substitution structure in which the use of symptomatic solutions is accompanied by a blurring of strategically important criteria. The firm gradually lowers quality criteria as it works to reduce costs. Management does not invest in new production methods that will improve quality and possibly reduce costs, but continues to talk about its commitment to quality. Sixth, escalation. To people or to organizations feel that their well-being depends on relative advantages over another person or another organization. When one party gets ahead, the other feels threatened and multiplies its efforts to regain the advantage, which endangers the first party and forces it to act with greater aggressiveness, etc. Some departments manage to increase their share of the company's budget, and others begin to strive to do the same in order to not lose their piece of the pie, leading to increased pressure on the budget. 7. Money to money. The lines of endeavor compete for limited resources. The greater the success of one, the more generously supplied that line of business is at the expense of the other. Two product lines compete for a company's limited managerial and financial resources. One is in greater demand and receives more resources at the expense of the other, triggering a reinforcing feedback mechanism. 8. The tragedy of shared resources. People utilize shared limited resources according to everyone's needs. At first this is beneficial to everyone, but then the returns begin to diminish, which stimulates more vigorous exploitation of these limited resources. The case ends with depletion or complete exhaustion of resources. The reputation of the firm deteriorates as a result of customers having to deal with a dozen salespeople from different parts of the corporation offering competing products. 9th, a solution that doesn't work. A solution that is effective in the short term causes unintended consequences in the long term that require increasing doses of the same solution. Reduced spending on routine repairs and maintenance leads to more equipment breakdowns and higher maintenance costs, leading to further cost cutting. 10th, growth and underinvestment. Limitations to growth can be removed or pushed to the future with sufficient investment in additional capacity, but the investment must be made quickly and decisively, or the investment will never be made. It is often the case that quality criteria are lowered to justify insufficient investment. Lowering standards leads to lower demanding standards, etc. People Express Airline failed to provide quality customer service to keep up with rapidly increasing demand. Instead of increasing investment in staff training or slowing growth, e.g., by slightly increasing airfares, the firm tried to solve problems through accelerated growth. As a result, service quality and labor discipline decline, and price competition intensify. Conclusion: in today's world, traditional hierarchical companies are doomed to extinction. The future lies in learning organizations, where people are not just mechanically following orders, but are actively involved in goal setting, planning, and learning processes. Learning organizations are possible because we all love to learn. It can be said that today the business community around the world is learning the wisdom of collaborative learning and is gradually becoming a global learning organization. The path to creating a new type of organization is thorny. It is necessary to get rid of stereotypes, to master the language of systemic thinking, to learn how to conduct a dialogue and develop a common vision. There is no end point in the process of creating a learning organization. Learning becomes a way of life, stimulating the effective work of the company and personal growth of each team member. A learning organization is characterized by group learning and the development of new intellectual models. The language of systems thinking allows us to perceive the world as a whole, see the interconnection of its elements, and find ways to change it. The concepts of feedback, reinforcing, and counterbalancing and delay are used to describe different systems which we encounter every minute of our lives. The most attractive of the possibilities offered by the systems approach is to bring together different branches of knowledge, since the same systems archetypes are found in management as well as in biology, psychology, economics, political science, and ecology. Thank you all for listening to the end. If you liked it, don't forget to rate and subscribe to the channel. You can buy the full version of the book at the link in the description.